Let's do a quick review after 600 acres of use on this PH Outdoors G8 drill. Hi, this is Matt with Genesis Custom Food Plots. Welcome to our shop here in Mosinee, Wisconsin. We have just finished a marathon planting season and it's time to go through the maintenance on our PH Outdoors G8 drill. If you own a PH Outdoors drill, or if you're thinking about buying one of the advantages of watching this video is we can accelerate your learning curve pretty substantially. This drill has had just over 600 acres put on it. So we want to go through the drill, kind of give you a picture of what you can expect as far as maintenance is concerned and some things to look out for, and maybe save you a little bit of time and a little bit of money going down the road. All right, so it's the end of our planting season. Our PH Outdoors G8's in the shop. First things first, we ran 2 of these this year. We put about 1,200 acres between the 2 drills. These things planted beautifully. Seed depth was great, seed rate was great. Our crops look fantastic in the field. Really happy with how that turned out. Couple maintenance things and improvements that were made on this drill. First and foremost, that chain system that holds up the row units themselves. The chains and the D-shackles perform flawlessly now. We had 2 of these, 600 acres apiece, not a single one failed. Big thumbs up on that. Second thing is on these press wheels. The press wheels themselves, they went away from the one-piece wheel that was greasable. A lot of people complained about having the amount of grease that was required to make those things go, and went to a 2-piece wheel. Big improvement there. There are 2 bearings inside this wheel, so if you got to change those bearings, it's much easier now. You undo the bolts, you can take the wheel apart and change the bearings. I do want to talk about just something to look for when you're thinking about changing bearings. If I look at these press wheels, the one on the left-hand side, this wheel is tight and it does not move at all. The one right next to it actually is starting to get a little bit of wobble in it. And the one thing that we did find that we kind of discounted and probably shouldn't have is as soon as this wheel gets even a little bit of movement in it, one of the 2 bearings in there is starting to go or is completely gone out. And this is the point when you want to start thinking about changing that bearing. To contrast that, if you're like us, you get a little bit of wobble, you go, I can make that go a little bit longer, it's still running fine, it doesn't affect my planting at all. Well, if you let that go too far, it doesn't take long and you get to this. And this wheel is completely shot. The bearings are both completely out of it, and the wheel is pretty much non-functional. The problem here is if you get to this point versus this point, is here you're almost committed to replacing the whole wheel because that pin does not want to come out of there. There's spacers in there that will seize to that. You'll wreck the flange that holds the bearing in on the outside of the wheel. And the difference between here and here is not very many acres. It's not going to take long to go from there to there. So once you start to see that little bit of movement, we'd highly recommend take that apart. That pin will come out pretty easily. Get 2 new bearings put in there. Those bearings are $8 to $12 a piece. Bolt it back together, put it back on. You'll save yourself a ton of headaches. So there were a lot of questions when this came out about this steel drive wheel. This thing has performed flawlessly. Absolutely 0 issues with it for the entire season. If you look at our other video that we did, we also recommend carrying a spring on board for this. We still would recommend you do that, but this spring actually just broke yesterday at about acre 598 out of 600. We did have one go out on the other drill as well, but they both lasted almost 550 to 600 acres. So it's a very easy change, it's a simple thing to have, but again, 500 to 600 acres out of that spring is pretty darn good. So swinging around to the front side of the PH drill, we got a lot of questions about why we took the front cutting coulters off of this. First and foremost, we took them off because we thought they were an expensive option, and what we found out is it didn't affect the plantability of this drill at all. It planted beautifully. The difference here is when we had the front cutting coulters, those cutting coulters took up a lot of the abuse and we had to change a lot of bearings in those front cutting coulters. Now we've taken them off. Now that abuse from rough ground is transferred back to the disc openers, and we've had to change quite a few bearings in the disc openers. The disc openers themselves held up pretty well, but we did have to change those bearings and those openers instead of the bearings in the front cutting coulters. I think that's really the primary difference. If we move up above that, we look at these individual row units. We did have to do some work on individual row units, and having those 4 bolts to simply drop a row unit off to work on that one and put it back together was way better than having a continuous shaft that you had to pull out and drop all the row units off and then put it all back together. That paid for itself in spades. Awesome improvement. Then one more thing up above here is we did add some weight to this. We added these suitcase weights on here. We added 6 weights on both sides. You can add about 12 on each side. We didn't need all those. The one thing that we would recommend is if you're adding something less than the maximum capacity of weights, just grab a ratchet strap and ratchet around those so they don't slide back and forth and jiggle all over on you. This has been this way since we put them on here. It's worked flawlessly and was a good investment for us. So overall, if you own a drill, you should be happy you own a PH Outdoors G8 drill. If you're thinking about buying one, I'd seriously look at this as an option for you. We've got, like I said, about 1,200 acres between the two of them. We put these things through the ringer in about every kind of condition that you could imagine. Anytime you have a piece of equipment, you need to be realistic. There's going to be things that break. There's going to be things that go wrong. It's a matter of how easy is it to deal with it and how easy is it to fix. If you follow some of the tips we just gave you, do some preventive maintenance on this, you're going to be happy with these drills for a very long time. If you've got questions about your PH Outdoors drill, about food plots in general, feel free to drop us a comment. We'd love to get back to you on that. Otherwise, can't tell you how much we appreciate you watching, and we'll look for you on the next video.